So the first, not so much a rule, but the first thing to consider is the subject. Keep it simple. That way you can focus on the main point is of turning it into something more than a representation. Okay. And then I sent you to a humble subject, the wine bottle. So here we got now again another bottle, but it's quite an interesting design, and the colors work well, the mark making works well. So this is just giving us perhaps a possibility. So when I first saw this, I thought, well, I like the idea of perhaps the brush strokes of these colors in the background. All right, I could go for a green bottle. Then I thought to take it towards semi-abstraction, I could then bring some of the background colors onto the edge of the bottle or the edges. So just again, denying that it's a bottle in almost, as it were, just degrading it a little bit. So that was my thought with this one, which I will try to explore when we come to do a sketching in a moment. And then, of course, this one here, we may have had this one in the past, actually, in one of the lessons going way back. This is just a collection of bottles. So this again is representational, but you could use this subject and take this towards semi-abstraction quite easily, I think. Right, so now I got options. We could at this point, of course, get color out. And it could be any paint, couldn't it? We're using watercolor eventually, but it could be any color. It could be pastel, acrylic, or whatever. So we know that. But what I'm going to do now is I got half an idea in my head. I want to sort of just splinter the lines a little bit. So if I take some charcoal, and remember, I could be doing this with paint. Well, and which we'll be doing shortly anyway. But the reason I'm doing charcoal now or any other medium is for us to take the idea a step forward. So that eventually that will become the subject to work from. So this is the willow charcoal. And I'm going to have the light coming from the right-hand side. I've also decided to retain the white of the label, so I've got to keep an eye on that. So my finger now is acting like a brush. Okay, careful to keep the white of the label. And that's the second bottle there. So I'm going to repeat back the same process. So, and again, I want to hang on to the white label. Maybe come down that side. And then finally at the bottom here. The other tool I got, of course, is my rubber. Now, I've now taken that to something like certainly semi-abstraction. We can, of course, just make out that these are a bottle. And then, of course, with a rubber, I find my rubber. This one here. And again, this could be a brush. That rubber's no good. So I'll take this one. And I could rub back a little bit if necessary. Okay. So this is the first exercise. And just to repeat myself, I might be happy with this. On this occasion, I will be. Otherwise, I could take this and refine it in a third drawing, in a third version, a fourth, and whatever. What I also do when I'm working now in my studio is I take a photograph of each version. So at least I've got a copy of it. Because it could well be that by version 5, you say to yourself, oh, I wish I stayed for version 3. But at least you've got it on your telephone. So that's good practice. And I could continue working here. I got other ideas, but I'm going to leave it. There we go. I don't know whether this will work by doing a bit more drawing. No, don't know whether that works. which is fine because we are experimenting, and most experiments, well, they don't so much fail. You might only learn 2%. And on the bottom, the shadow area, couldn't I? There we go. Wow. Right, I'll give you a couple of minutes to essentially do what I've just done. Can't say I'm happy about that, so I'll take those out. Okay. But this is par for the course. What I did there is perfectly acceptable. You make little mistakes, you're not happy with something, take it out. Pencil. I'll take the strong one. So I'm going to do the superimposing, and I'm going to take one pencil. If you find it easy with two to get multiple lines, then feel free. So I'm going to take this now. These will represent brush strokes, by the way. So it's just the bottles. Just the bottles. They don't have to be in proportion either. Approach it quite loosely. There's bottle number 1. Bottle number 2. So this is the subject. And yes, I want to retain the white label. I'm almost inclined to put a third bottle there. So once again, remember, at any point, at this stage here now, I could do something different with it. I mentioned about putting in a bottle diagonally across there. But I'm going to keep it simple for this first one. So I've now transferred this idea onto another piece of paper. And now I'm going to prepare some paint. So I've got the colors mixed now. 2 blues, a hooker's green, and a lighter version of it, plus a Naples yellow. Right. Now remember, there's another sort of leap forward because now we're going to use color. Here is the subject. It's no longer the photograph. It's now here. Okay, so I refer to this. Again, we need to have a little plan as to what we do. So thinking about it, I'm just considering the background. I'm going to have the bottle green. But I want to work in a spontaneous way also. Come into the bottles now, working wet onto dry, and let the brush strokes play a role. I'm also going to take it a little bit into the bottle, because remember, I want to work semi-abstract and not representational. So I'm following my instinct, because remember, I might do another 3 or 4 of these preliminary paintings, sketches, before I commit further. Go a bit darker. Ultramarine blue, leave it. Take it a little bit there. Oh, I don't want to go into the white too much. Right. Now I come to the bottles themselves, and this time I'm going to work wet onto dry. Aware, of course, that if I touch the paint there, it's going to bleed into it, which I don't mind. You've got to take chances. So I'm coming to the light green first, or the light tone. And I got this idea picked up, I think, from the one I showed you, of letting brush strokes show a little bit. And I am now retaining more of the white, as you can see. If I take it off the edges a little bit, so back to that green again, retaining, I want the white remaining of the labels. So I got to this point. Now I can go darker, because I got a darker version of that green. It is the hooker's green. So now I can put the darker version in. I'm still using the big brush. the shadow areas on the right. I still want to retain, and it's just I've had it in my head. What I should do now, of course, is take a photograph on my camera. In fact, I will do that so that at least I'll have a reference in case I want to sort of go back in time to do a more finished painting without taking this too far forward. Okay, so taking chances again. There's a brush. I want to add these individual brush strokes showing, or some. But I may have to soften some of these edges, you see. They may be a bit boring otherwise. Same on that side. I want to retain the whiteness there. I will just soften some of them so that they don't look too boring. There we go. Then I continue over here. And I put a stroke there. What I will do now, I'll just come into the background with my deeper blue. Something similar to ultramarine. And I'm going to bring it up against this paint. And that, of course, will bleed into each other. And we'll lose now some of the definition of the objects. But it's experimenting. Here we go. I'm inclined to leave this at this point. So I've been mentioning about taking chances. I'm just going to dampen this brush. This is a 2-inch brush. I want to retain the white of the label. What I'm going to do, now remember, I've taken a photograph, so nothing is lost, because if I don't like what I'm going to do now, I've got the previous version. So I'm just lightly going to drag the brush I'm going to take it over the white area, the labels. The paint's drying off a bit now, so I may have left it a little bit late, but never mind. What I could do is this. I could spray the paper. So I'll spray the paper. But once again, I'm happy to take chances. Because the paint is drying, there we go, I've sprayed it. And I repeat the process. Gently stroke the brush. Now in the end, I didn't use the yellow, as you can see. Now there we go. A little bit over the white. And now I leave it. And I take another photograph. Yes, I could have a little look of a mount around it. Okay. So if we come to mine first of all. Okay then, are you looking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm glad I did that last act by just spraying to loosen up the paint again and drawing that wide brush over it. So now, of course, we have taken, if I can find it. Yes, here it is. This subject, and I've got to this point with it. So as you can see, in a short period of time, I've advanced the idea. I might well now be happy enough with what I've got here to do a painting. And I would be happy. The question then becomes, what material would I use? Would I use watercolor? In my head, I'd be inclined to use oil or acrylic. I could thin the paint down to get this effect. Then I could use the texture of the paint and so on. So that has been well worth doing, and it's excited my interest to take this idea forward. But I can't emphasize enough, we'll look at yours in a moment, how we've taken a simple object, a wine bottle, and got to this point with it. Any comments on mine before I come and have a look at yours?
Yeah.
Okay, then. So this is the second exercise. We start off with a drawing. The technique now is going to be different from the first drawing technique. Okay. I'm not sure whether you've done this with me before. I can't remember. It's possibly you have. Right. What I'm going to do now, you can watch and then you do it yourself. When I draw up this subject now, the bottle, onto my sheet of paper, I'm not going to look at the drawing. I think I'll try and put in two bottles. So I'll draw this bottle twice, okay? The critical thing is, when you do this, you must not look at your drawing. You turn your head away and just look at the photograph of the bottle or the subject. You've got to resist at all costs wanting to look at the drawing, because that's what your brain will tell you to do. So no looking at your drawing whilst in the drawing process. You're best to keep your hand in contact with the paper, and also don't let the pencil lift up from the drawing. Okay, so when you move from one point to another point, if you don't want to put a line in, just leave a little faint trail. So in other words, keep contact with the paper at all times, but do not, I repeat, do not look at your drawing. Right, are you all listening? I think I started the recording. Okay then, so I'm going to start with the top of the bottle. Here I go, and I'm going to draw it twice. Right, now I must resist looking at the drawing, so I'm looking away. There's the top of the bottle. Remember, I'm not looking at the drawing. I come down down to the shoulder, down to the bottom of the bottle. There's the bottom of the bottle. I'm not looking at the drawing. Up again now to the shoulder. There's the shoulder. There's the neck of the bottle, down to the shoulder. Oh, I forgot to put in the label. The label should be hopefully there. There we go. Now I come back up and I'm going to draw the second bottle next to it, or repeat bottle, I should say. There we go. There's the right-hand side of the neck. There's the shoulder again. There's the right-hand side. Remember, resist looking at your drawing. There's the bottom of the bottle. The left-hand side of the bottle. There's the shoulder again, up the neck. There's the top of the bottle. Down the neck, back to the shoulder. Here's the label. And I've got the whole bottle in, or I've done it twice. Now I look at my drawing. There we go. What a shock. Okay. Right. Well, you're laughing. Okay, then. Has anyone done this exercise with me in the past? Oh, Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go then. So there we go. Fair enough. It's a well worth exercise because the points I'm going to sort of make now. Because we got a very static object here, it's only just pin it again. It's very easy, as we found out on the first exercise, just to copy it, you see. But doing it, approaching it the way we did it on the first occasion and on this one, you get an abstract drawing, without much effort on your part. You get the idea? So now I can look at it and analyze it and think, what else can I do to this drawing? In actual fact, I'm quite happy with what I achieved here. This is the first bottle I drew here, obviously, because there's the label and there's the bottom. That's the neck, I take it. Then I tried to draw the second bottle, again, its neck, the shoulder, and there's the label. I quite like that design. Without me doing it this way, I'd struggle to get that, because looking at it in a conventional way, my brain would be telling me to do other things. But I've achieved this point now. As I said a moment ago, I could leave it at this and then get the paint out. In fact, I won't do much to it, but I still got the option of coming back to this and doing and extending the drawing further. I don't want to do too much on it because I rather like it as it is. But just to show you, I could sort of take this area out, because again, I've got a repetition of lines, curves, and so forth, which is good. If I thought that area was a bit messy, I could take it out. You see? In other words, I can now edit or refine my initial drawing. I'm inclined to leave that, and maybe then, see, I mean, my brain is telling me to put a line in there for the neck of the bottle. It is. And as I keep repeating, I could refine that a little bit more, make little adjustments. And then I could get charcoal out or whatever, or pastel, and add color to further advance the preliminary sketching process. So again, I might do 2, 3, 4, or 5 preliminary pieces before I'm finally happy to commit myself to a finished painting. But for the purpose of expediency, I'm going to leave that as a working sketch. And in a moment, I'll get some paint out. But first of all, of course, I want you to do it. Any questions before you get down to doing it yourself? But I also got red this time. Once again, I still want to retain the whiteness of the label. I see another bottleneck there. There. There's the shoulder of the bottle there. Here, I'm not quite sure, so I just put in a stroke that way. It could be a bottleneck with a bend in it. The shoulder again. The label, which I'm trying to retain the whiteness of the paper. Still doing it in light green. Now I'm going to get the dark green. Dark green. So remember, this could be part of a series. Again, I imagine the light coming from the left. Shoulder, shoulder. That neck, that neck. Retain that label there. Now I'm relying on my instinct. I've still got some red here. I'm not quite sure where to put the red, but here I go. Touch there. Touch there. Don't think I used too much of it. So as you can see, it's now going towards, well, even the touch perhaps beyond the semi-abstraction. So I got to this point with it. Now I'll go back to the ultramarine blue. And maybe I've come into the bottom area to represent shadows. And maybe come then to the top of the subject. Using ultramarine blue. And then have a little think. The label, there could be a label there. I'll come back here. Once again with the deep green. There we go. Maybe I go a bit deeper with the green. And I got some cerulean green here. I'm working now, as you can see, wet into wet, darkening the green with the cerulean green. So you're making judgments and hoping they'd be the right ones. But you must go through this process of being brave. And I'm going to stop at this point. Take the mount, have a little look at the mount around it. Probably a bit small. Now, I'm very pleased with what I've achieved there. I've still got the pencil marks here. I'm inclined to leave them in, but of course I could take a rubber and take them out. Otherwise, that's been a useful exercise. With a big amount. Oh, probably works a little bit better with a big amount. There we go. And of course I could leave this now, put it to one side and come back tomorrow. Probably one of the first things is to bring the background color into the action quite easily, I think. You could use this subject and take this towards semi-abstraction quite easily, I think. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, probably one of the first things is lovely, I think.
Yeah.
Away.
Yeah, I'm nearly done.